We welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Friday, April 1st. First Friday of the month. This time we spotlight the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. Normally we have its president, Mike Gorehouse, join us via the Zoom connection, but he's on vacation. I don't know if he's in warmer climes like the host of the Lakeshores Wake Up Call on the Lakeshores 92.7 The Van, but he has left an able deputy to join us today, the Director of Community Impact for the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area. Yah-Hanna Jenkins Leys is on the other end of our Zoom connection this morning. Welcome back, Yah-Hanna. It's been a pleasure to have you with us before. Hope to have a pleasure again today.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
And if you have a question about the Community Foundation of the Holland, Zeeland area, Yah-Hanna would be more than happy to answer it at 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. One of the things that Mike likes to talk about is the round of competitive grants, and the recent round has just been completed. Tell us a little bit about who is getting money from the CFHZ to help in their efforts.
Yeah, this was a very competitive round and a lot of amazing applications. We had over 3 times the amount of dollars requested than were available to spend. So we distributed just about $125,000 to 7 organizations, ranging in addressing issues from immigration to mental health to youth service organizations. Our top funded organization was Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates for their work through the New Americans Legal Clinic. Already, they've served just over 360 individuals through that program. So just a lot of amazing organizations and programs serving this community.
Tell us a little bit about that immigration, because it has become more of an issue now, not so much from the usual areas that we get immigration from south of the border, but now with the conflicts, the leaving of Afghanistan back in August, and now the Ukrainian situation, we're going to get some refugees coming here, and we're going to probably see some of those refugees coming into the West Michigan area.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates is the only nonprofit legal service organization in Ottawa County. So they're serving refugee families, asylees at no cost to them. They're partnering with organizations like Bethany Christian Services who lead those resettlement efforts, and just being able to provide that support in terms of the transition for those families. That's very important for stabilization and just that security that any asylee, any refugee deems very important for their family health, and just being able to build a future in a new country during such a chaotic time in their lives. So this New Americans Legal Clinic will serve, it was built up around the fact that our community was going to see a large influx of families, specifically Afghan refugees, and will continue to serve any refugee families that are find West Michigan as their home.
What are some of the other grants went to this time around besides the Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates?
Yeah, another was through the mental health range, which our Youth Advisory Council, they reviewed the Endeavor to Persevere, Be Better program. It's a new program that really builds out of the Miskelly family and the tragic loss of their son, and they're just responding in such an amazing way. And the YAC, it really resonated with them as young people who know that mental health and the needs that surround just the variety of needs, whether that's peer support, counseling, therapy, just being able to have another organization that is there to not only support the individual struggling, but their families and friends, people in their circle who love them and just want to be able to provide that additional support. So Endeavor to Persevere was another that really resonated with our Youth Advisory Council, in that they recommended to be funded, alongside Midtown Counseling as well for their new Healing Arts program. That's a phenomenal use of resources in the sense of trying out different strategies to engage families and individuals in processing mental health needs.
We've gone over the winners of the first for the competitive grants. that was announced earlier this month. Organizations such as Lighthouse Immigrant Advocates, Resilience, Advocates for Ending Violence, the Tri-Cities Puentes Initiative, Michigan Fosters, Endeavor to persevere, I should say, be better. Endeavor to persevere, be better. Midtown Counseling Services and Calvary Reformed Church receiving grants from as much as $30,000 to as little as $5,000. But all the grants become very important in terms of enriching our community. Yah-Hanna, talk a little bit about the process of, as you mentioned, there was more grant money more than wanted the grant money than it was actually available. How tough of the decision process was this?
It was very difficult. It was probably one of our more competitive rounds. We typically, at least prior to the pandemic, we would see 6 to 7 applications each round, and we had 12 applications from very worthy organizations with all eligible grant applications. So my job prior to an organization submitting is to walk alongside an organization, help them, address the criteria in as close way as possible, and being able to ensure that their application is competitive and in that process. And once they submit, then my colleague Elizabeth Kidd, the Vice President of Community Impact, and myself, we prepare the packets, and our distributions committee, who are members of our community, and a few board members review these applications and score them based on a rubric. This rubric is really looking at organizations that are in a season of growth or change, and looking at these 4 top criteria. Is it a pivot or turning point for the organization? Will it create a lasting impact? Does the organization have the capacity to deliver? That includes financial, leadership. And then is it core to the organization's mission? There are a few others that carry a few less points, but these are the main categories that our distributions committee looks at. They review, as well as our youth advisory council, and then they make recommendations to our board of directors who approve those. So the conversations in the room, we share where our scores landed. Elizabeth and I do not vote, but the committee does, and they talk about where their scores landed, why they voted in such a way, which ones they believe, based on where we all landed, should receive funding. Our board has also charged us with looking at making significant grants. So thinking about this in a way that's not sprinkling around dollars, but a meaningful grant to the organization that has requested. So fewer grants with more impactful dollars in that sense.
Along those lines, Yah-Hanna, it's one thing to consider a grant application before a decision is made. What about follow-up? What does the foundation do to follow up on these grants so that the money that has been donated out to these organizations, you're getting, quote unquote, the bang for the buck on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And our process, having the distributions committee and all of these pieces, we recognize that through this process, we're stewarding community dollars through our community's endowment. And so we're committed to transparency and also to supporting nonprofits in delivering. So once that process is concluded, we send them a notification as well as a contract that says, here are the expectations, and if anything changes based on what you've submitted within the timeline outlined, we expect a conversation. We'll have follow-up conversations outside of that as well, just checking in. How is it going? If it's a new facility, maybe it's a tour. If it's a new program, just checking in if everything's going as planned. And then we also have opportunities for grantees to present to the distributions committee. So finding different ways to engage partners.
Is there a way to gauge the success of these grants in terms of, we've given X amount of money to this group and they've come back afterwards and saying, this is what happened with it? Is there an accountability in that regard?
Yeah. So we, whether that's through a call where we take notes when they're sharing, we served 150 people. We're able to, do programming on such and such dates and all of those pieces. They can write it up and send it to us, or we can have a conversation where we record those details. But we follow up toward the end of that grant timeline.
We're talking about those who have received the grants and are grant winners, Yah-Hanna. What about those organizations that made a good presentation, but the decision was made to go in a different direction? Did those organizations have a chance to maybe resubmit? Maybe the timing wasn't right, or you're up at plate one time, and if you don't get it, I'm sorry, we got to go in a different direction, and you can't resubmit.
Yeah, well, we follow up and we let them know, sorry, it wasn't funded, but they can resubmit something else, so they won't be able to. Sorry, I have a tickle in my throat.
Understandable. So do I. So, but
Yeah.
go ahead. But I mean, is it a case of, well, they got to think of something else to maybe convince that they're going to get a grant?
Yes, they would be able to come back, but with a different application.
All right. Just kind of wondering, we have so many good organization and good efforts that sometimes if they don't succeed, it's going to be, they can say, oh, we could have. But anyway, let's move on. One more question before we take a break, Yah-Hanna. Is the grant situation, say, for example, we have a pool, and I'll just throw an open number, okay? $10 million. $10 million for grants for 2022. And we just got around. Do you try to evenly split? Okay. If we have 10 million, let's see, if you split about like 2.5 million per quarter. And let's say, is that the way it's split up, or do you say, okay, we're giving away X amount now, but we can give X and Y maybe the next quarter?
Yeah, so because it's a communities endowment, we're able to calculate how much we're able to spend every year based on a 12-quarter rolling basis. So we look at what were the returns on that endowment that were invested, what was the 5%, so that tells us how much is available. And then we look at our communities endowment initiatives, and we split those dollars up accordingly. So specifically to our grant making work, we have about $300,000 each year, and we would split those up in even amounts for each round. The pandemic sort of changed it up a little bit because we had a different response, COVID-19 response work that we did. But typically that's what we would do. We would split it evenly among the rounds based on what.
The reason why I bring that up is that the flexibility. Maybe the need is more in a different quarter than it is in an earlier quarter. You've got to be able to be flexible and agile when the needs are there.
Yeah, the committee has the option. So they know going in how much they have for each round. And if they feel very compelled in this particular round to be able to increase that amount, they have the option. But oftentimes there's concern, well, we don't know what's coming in the next round and then the following round, and we don't want to short ourselves on what's available then. And so typically they would stick within that equal division amount because it's so hard to know for sure what's coming.
I know it's like, I'm talking nuts and bolts here, but it does sort of enlighten our listeners and the general public, Yah-Hanna, as to the process and what goes into it, so that when you announce these grants, people get a better idea of what exactly the dollars are doing, especially for those who have invested in the community foundation of the Holland Zeeland area.
Absolutely.
We touched upon this a little bit, Yah-Hanna, earlier when we were talking about the follow-up and the deciding process for these competitive grants that the foundation gives on a quarterly basis. As the director of community impact, do you take a look around? And I know you've been I think it's been 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. You can take a look around and see, wow, what we have done since I've gotten on the job, and what the foundation has done over the years, and sort of like, not so much shake your head and bad, but like not like, yeah, we did all that.
Yeah, I think the biggest point for me with that was last summer when we wrapped up our COVID-19 response work, and we were just pulling together all the data around the organizations funded, the dollars that went out the door, and the impact that we had in partnership with so many amazing organizations led by so many committed leaders. it was just amazing to see. I mean, at one point we were doing grant rounds every month. It was a lot, but it was just amazing to see how we partnered in such an impactful way to be able to do that together as a community. So I would say that that happens, and it's probably those moments of reflection when you look back on the past 12 to 18 months and seeing all of those organizations and people in our community impacted.
Now, some people have come here from other parts of the country, and they remark how remarkable it is about this community. Quality of life, people that are in it. And, I've been in it for 20 years, but yet, I still say, hey, this is a little something special in this part of this neck of the woods, if you want to call it that as well. And part of maybe what we are has to do with the contributions of the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland Area. And that's why I sort of brought that up with you, Yah-Hanna, because of the fact that you it's lack of a better term, you're on the front lines and seeing that. And this just makes this community what it is. And the CFHC, and again, I'm not trying to, flatter you, but the CFHC is a big part of that.
Yeah. And when I joined the team, I was just, so grateful to be a part of a group of individuals who, everyone here, right, whether it's in finance or our admin team or development, we all care so passionately about this community. And I think that's the magic of it. We have a board that cares about the community and a team that just so fiercely wants to serve and to do well by our community. And I think that we're one of many institutions that make this a great place, I hope, to live, work, and play for everyone. And we're committed. We're committed to seeing this community, everyone, regardless of or because of who you are, fully thrive in this community, all people.
The website for more information on the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland Area is cfhz.org. And if you want more information, call the Community Foundation at 616-396-6590. 616-396-6590. Yah-Hanna Jenkins Leys, as always, thank you very much for joining us on Talk of the Town. Look forward to chatting with you again soon. Thank you for all you do to the community.
Thank you, Gary.
And that is Yah-Hanna Jenkins Leys of the Community Foundation of the Holland Zeeland Area.